You were never invisible. She just never felt anything when you arrived. And the cruel truth is that in the silent theater of seduction, whoever doesn't provoke a sensation doesn't exist. The world isn't governed by logic, it's ruled by stimuli. And if you still believe that attraction is rational, you're being humiliated every day without even realizing it. The woman you desire isn't looking for the most handsome man, nor the richest, nor the most intelligent. She seeks, even without knowing it, the one who touches her most primitive instincts. And this happens even before the first word. Therein lies the paradox. While you rehearse lines, stories, and compliments to get noticed, she's already been dominated or repelled in less than 3 seconds. And most men will never know why. Seduction begins before the approach. It's decided in the first few seconds on an almost animalistic level, where the body reacts before the mind interprets. Does that scare you? It should, because it means that all the effort you put in, to please, to talk, to show how much of a nice guy you are, might in practice be sabotaging you. Meanwhile, other men do less and receive more. Men who don't explain, don't justify, don't put themselves in a position of acceptance. They simply exist, and they are felt. And this is where the anger comes in, because at some point you realize that effort doesn't generate results, that the more you give, the less she values you, that the more you chase after her, the more she runs away, that the more you talk, the more she falls silent. And then you doubt yourself, blame your appearance, your height, your bank account, but none of that explains it. What explains it is the silent rule that magnetic men follow, and that most completely ignore. You don't conquer her desire with logic. You trigger her desire with presence. And presence isn't appearance. It's the set of signals your body emits, it's the weight of your energy in the environment. It's your ability to maintain the mystery while everyone else begs for attention. Nietzsche said that what is done out of love is beyond good and evil, but what is done out of need is beneath contempt. The problem is that we confuse attraction with effort. We confuse being good with being desired. We confuse kindness with lust. And we confuse all of this because no one taught us what actually triggers female desire. Culture taught you to be kind, polite, helpful, protective, but it never showed you the abyss that exists between respect and lust. A woman can deeply respect you and feel absolutely nothing. And that's where you lose. Because she may even say she admires you, that she thinks you're incredible, that she wants to feel something, but she doesn't. Because desire isn't an argument. It's instinct, it's body language, it's unconscious, it's animal. And if you don't learn this truth now, you'll continue to be chosen as a friend, as an advisor, as a shoulder to cry on, but never as a man. And the cruelest part? You'll see her giving herself to guys who don't have half her character, but who know how to stand up for themselves. Guys who aren't afraid of silence, who don't try to fill every void with words, who don't explain themselves as if they're apologizing for being men. Guys who understood the rule. This rule isn't in self-help books. It doesn't appear in advice from girlfriends. It won't be told by your mother. It was shaped by biology, history, and the silent war of the sexes. This rule is brutal because it exposes the failure of those who live trying to please. And that's why so few follow it. It demands that you abandon the role of the nice guy and assume the role of inner leader. It demands that you stop asking permission to exist. And it demands, above all, that you understand female desire is reactive. It responds to signals, and those signals aren't what you say. They are what you are. If you want to be truly desired, not tolerated, not accepted, not considered, you need to activate a new kind of presence. A presence that doesn't beg, that doesn't try, that doesn't plead. A presence that creates tension. And tension, understand this now, is the secret to seduction. Tension is what separates the magnetic man from the nice guy. Tension is what makes her look at you and feel that there's something in you that she doesn't yet understand, but wants to discover. And when that happens, you win even before you touch her. But hold on. Before talking about what to do, we need to understand why you fail. Because every man who fails with women doesn't do so for lack of effort. It's for an excess of the wrong kind of effort. And this effort comes from a poisonous idea that she needs to choose you, that she must rationally evaluate your worth. But that's not how female desire works. Desire doesn't choose, desire responds. And that's the key that changes everything. Now you're ready. In the next chapter, we'll reveal this rule that the most irresistible men follow without speaking, without explaining, without begging. An invisible rule that once activated completely transforms how she sees you, and especially how she reacts to you. She doesn't choose. She feels. It's hard to swallow this when you grew up being taught that it was enough to be a good catch. When all you heard was that women are charmed by stability, by kindness, by commitment. And yes, maybe you even admire that. But you don't desire it. At least not immediately. Because desire doesn't obey these social rules. It ignores logic, laughs at morality, and overrides reason. And while you invest months proving you'd be an excellent boyfriend, another man awakens a wild desire in her in minutes, without any effort. What does he know that you don't? The answer is brutal. He understood that desire is biological. And everything that is biological is primitive, irrational, automatic. You don't choose to feel hunger, your body goes off. She doesn't choose to feel desire either. Her body just reacts. The name for this? The limbic system. The part of the brain that is responsible for emotions, impulses, arousal. And when you talk too much, explain too much, give too much away, you force her to process you with the neocortex, the logical brain. And desire doesn't reside there. It resides in instinct. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio already said, feeling comes before thinking. And that's exactly the problem. You think while others make her feel. You think about being polite. You think about seeming interesting. You think about not being invasive. Meanwhile, a man with the right body language, with the right look, with the right energy, triggers something in her that she herself can't explain. That's science. And it's also brutal, because it shows us how much we are held hostage by invisible stimuli. But at the same time, it empowers us. If you understand the right signals, you no longer need to try to convince her. You make her body decide before she has time to think. And here comes the rule that almost no man knows. Women are not attracted by words. They are attracted by emotional context. This means that what she feels by your side matters more than any resume you present. It doesn't matter how much you earn if she feels bored in your presence. It doesn't matter how faithful you are if she doesn't feel desire. It doesn't matter how kind you are if you seem emotionally weak. And this is where most people fail. Because they confuse kindness with presence, and they are different things. Kindness without energy, without mystery, without tension, is invisible. Presence is what creates the magnetic field. It's what generates the sexual tension she can't control. And presence isn't something you say, it's something you emanate. The way you occupy the space, the way you look, the way you pause, the way you don't need her validation to exist. Cleopatra wasn't the most beautiful woman in Egypt, but she was the most cherished. Mark Antony and Julius Caesar didn't bow before her beauty. They surrendered to her mystery. She understood the invisible dance of desire. And you need to understand that too. Female desire isn't awakened by perfection. It's awakened by the energy that creates tension. And this energy is born when you stop behaving like someone trying to earn it, and start acting like someone who carries their own universe, which can be discovered, but never dominated. That's why figures like James Dean, Marlon Brando, or even fictional villains like Thomas Shelby and Don Draper exert a disproportionate fascination. It's not because they're evil. It's because they're emotionally unshakable. They don't explain. They don't please. They don't beg. They're not afraid of silence. And this absence of need activates something that no amount of kindness activates: the desire to decipher. And a woman who wants to decipher you is already fascinated. Desire is born from the gap, not from abundance. It's born from what's missing, not what's left over. When you give everything away right away, when you're transparent, predictable, too available, you eliminate the mystery. And mystery is the engine of excitement. It's the absence that provokes imagination. And without imagination, there's no lust. Think about it. You don't desire what you already fully understand. You desire what you haven't yet deciphered. You desire what challenges you, and her brain works the same way. The Spanish philosopher Ortega Gasset said, "Love is born from fascination, and fascination is born from surrender to the unknown." That's why seduction isn't about what you offer, but about what you withhold. Desire isn't born from offering. It's born from strategic absence. And strategic absence doesn't mean disappearing, ignoring, or playing hard to get. It means not exposing yourself emotionally before provoking enough for her to want to dive in. It means not justifying yourself, not explaining your feelings on the first date, not talking about your ex, your pain, your past, before she's felt your energy. Because when you open up too early, you give away the ending before the first act. And then there's no reason to watch anymore. Desire is the construction of tension, and tension needs rhythm. Tension needs pauses. Tension needs control. And control in this game isn't about dominating her, it's about dominating yourself. It's about containing the impulse to please. It's about containing the desire to prove. It's about containing the fear of silence. Because when you maintain silence, when you don't rush to speak, you show confidence. And confidence is an aphrodisiac. The man who remains silent with confidence transmits more desire than the one who speaks desperately. You've noticed this. Maybe you never understood it, but you felt it. That guy who arrives and doesn't need to introduce himself in 5 seconds, who observes more than he speaks, who doesn't laugh at everything, who chooses when to respond, who isn't in a hurry. He may even be ignored by some, but he will always be desired by the right ones. Because magnetic presence is like an invisible perfume. You smell it before you see it. And when you realize it, you're already bewitched. This applies to men too. Think about the moments when you were most attracted to someone. Was it when they praised you excessively? When they explained how good a person they were? Or was it when they seemed to have something you didn't yet fully understand? Desire for both sexes arises from the same equation. Tension plus uncertainty plus perception of value. But for women, this equation is even more refined, because the female brain is programmed to pick up on signals of protection, power, and unpredictability. 3 elements that the nice guy deconstructs with his premature emotional transparency. Understand, vulnerability has power, but only after you've built authority. Premature vulnerability is desperation. Post-magnetism vulnerability is connection. And that difference changes everything. Female desire doesn't respond to your pain, it responds to your emotional structure. If you break down too early, she feels pity. If you break down at the right moment, she feels empathy. But for that to happen, first, she needs to desire you. So stop trying to convince her with logic. Start provoking sensations. And these sensations are triggered by your body language, your calmness, your energy, your selective listening, your lack of reactivity. Everything that communicates, I don't need you to feel whole. And this, ironically, makes her want to be part of your world. This is the silent game of seducers. They don't play charm, they play energy. They know that what she feels in 3 seconds defines everything. And they structure every gesture, every silence, every look, so that this feeling is inevitable. They don't ask to be noticed. They make her feel something before she even realizes she's feeling it. That's the rule. Not the one you were taught, but the one that has always worked. You don't activate female desire with words, but with a presence she can't ignore. And once that happens, you've already won before even saying your name. And now that you understand the truth about female desire, that it's not a rational choice, but an instinctive response, you're ready for the next level. Because in the next chapter, you'll discover the core behavior that activates this instinct, real masculinity. But not brute force, but rather direction. This is where almost everyone fails. Because when they hear about masculinity as something that activates desire, they think of strength, aggression, imposition. And this mistake is fatal, because what truly excites a woman is not brute power, it's emotional direction. The ability to sustain an unwavering energy, to lead without forcing, to be the rock amidst her chaos. That is masculinity in its purest form. Not noise, but axis. Not control over her, but mastery over oneself. The masculinity that activates desire is not performative. It is silent. You don't see it, you feel it. It's in the way a man positions himself emotionally in the world. In the fact that he doesn't need anyone's validation to act, choose, or speak. This is not arrogance. It's center. It's clarity. And this type of man, however discreet he may be, carries a presence that dominates the environment without raising his voice. This provokes desire because it activates in a woman one of the oldest instincts, to follow someone who has direction. Psychologist David Deida explains this with brutal precision. A woman tests a man not to destroy him, but to feel that he is capable of remaining firm in the center of his own being. In other words, she tests to see if you have direction. And if you don't, she gives up, perhaps without even knowing why. Because deep down, every woman wants to feel secure with someone who doesn't bend to her moods, doesn't waver with her emotions, doesn't lose his balance. Someone who, when the internal or external world collapses, still knows where he's going. The masculinity that provokes desire is the one that chooses, the one that decides, the one that leads. Not with authoritarian words, but with posture. A man who doesn't wait for permission to advance, but also doesn't invade someone else's space. He observes. He reads the environment. He moves with intention. And this intention is felt by her at deep levels because it activates biologically polarity. The dance between yang and yin, between direction and receptivity, between containment and expansion. And without this dance, there is no tension. Without tension, there is no desire. What destroyed modern masculinity was the idea that being good is enough. Men began to seek emotional validation in exchange for approval. They became eternally solicitous, always trying to predict what she wants to hear, what she wants to do, what she would like him to be. And with that, they lost their form. They became lukewarm water. They don't provoke, they don't challenge, they don't lead. They just float in whatever she decides. And that's why they are disposable. Because a woman may respect a man like that, but she will never truly desire him. And here's the most perverse irony. The more you try to be what she says she wants, the less she feels. Because female desire does not respond to what is comfortable. It responds to what is intense. To what has direction, even if it contradicts. To what provokes a challenge, even if it causes discomfort. And that is why the most desired men in history, in all contexts, have something in common. They do not compromise their own core to please. Look at Napoleon. Look at Genghis Khan. Even controversial figures like Che Guevara, James Bond, or even Tony Stark are captivating. The fascination isn't in their morality. It's in the inner strength that emanates from their conviction. These are men who don't apologize for existing, who know what they want, who move the world around them, not the other way around. And this, even in modern times, still activates the female brain involuntarily. A woman may resist, but her body feels it. Now think, when was the last time you took the lead in a situation? When was the last time you made a decision without asking for confirmation? When was the last time you conducted a conversation, an interaction, a relationship with presence and clarity? When was the last time you held the silence instead of filling the space with justifications? That's leadership. That's masculinity. And that's what's missing in men who live in the limbo of almost. Almost happened. Almost happened. Almost did. Because deep down, she felt you didn't know where you were going. And if you don't know, she doesn't want to go either. That's what bad guys do without realizing it. They don't ask permission. They don't hesitate. They aren't afraid of conflict. And this, even unconsciously, conveys power. The nice guy, on the other hand, is constantly asking permission to exist. Do you want to go out with me? Is it okay if I text you? Were you upset? These behaviors communicate that you don't lead your own life. And if you don't lead yours, how will she trust that you can lead anything with her? Here's the stark difference. A man with direction offers a path. A man without direction offers comfort. The first provokes desire. The second offers friendship. And when you don't know which one you're in, you're already in the second. But be careful. Direction is not domination. Direction is not being bossy, arrogant, or controlling. That's a caricature. Direction is knowing what you want and moving firmly in that direction with or without approval. And more. Direction doesn't impose. Direction invites. It's the firm hand that guides, but never forces. And that's why she feels safe and at the same time challenged. And this creates the perfect formula for arousal, security plus tension. When she feels that you know where you're going and that it doesn't depend on her to get there, she lets go. Because now she knows she can relax, that she can allow herself to be feminine, that she doesn't need to compete, control, or lead. And this creates the polarity that makes the encounter between the sexes something explosive. But what if she's strong, dominant, independent? Great. Even better. Because these women, more than any other, want someone who challenges them, who isn't intimidated, who doesn't bend, who commands respect, and at the same time, who doesn't need to compete with them, who simply has direction. And when that happens, the game changes. She stops being controlling and becomes submissive. Not because she was dominated, but because she was contained. And containment is what all expansive energy ultimately desires. Carl Jung said that there is no awakening of consciousness without pain. And the awakening of masculinity is also painful, because it requires killing the good boy, the one who seeks approval, the one who runs from conflict, the one who is afraid of being rejected, the one who sabotages himself to please, the one who dissolves so as not to bother. And in his place, the man is born. The one who faces challenges, the one who speaks, the one who decides, the one who refuses, the one who leads. And yes, the one who loses when necessary, but never begs. That's the man she desires. Not the most handsome, not the strongest, but the most centered, the one with a mission, the one who knows what he's doing here, the one who looks you in the eye without hesitation, the one who listens without bending, the one who sets limits with gentleness, the one who creates tension with presence, and who never, under any circumstances, loses himself to please another. But pay attention. This masculinity isn't built on clichés. It's forged in the silence of your decisions, in the weight of your actions, in how much you're willing to stand by your truths, in how much you refuse to diminish yourself to fit someone's desire, and in how much you lead, even when you're afraid. That's what she feels, that's what attracts her. And when you embody that, you don't need to prove anything, because she feels it. And when she feels it, desire is inevitable. In the next chapter, you'll discover the invisible behavior that transforms all of this into real power. Because it's not enough to have direction. You need to know how to sustain silence, know how to create gaps, know how to provoke desire without speaking. And for that, there's a rule that true masters of seduction follow. A rule that most men will never understand. But once activated, it transforms any interaction into a magnetic field of tension, mystery, and desire. He wasn't the tallest, nor the most handsome. He wasn't the most talkative, nor the funniest. But when he entered a room, something changed. Women looked, men adjusted. It was as if his presence demanded a new rhythm, a new level of attention. And the most curious thing, he spoke little, almost nothing. But every gesture, every silence, every pause created tension. He didn't need to conquer. He was the mystery that women wanted to decipher. This man exists in every social circle. He's the guy who doesn't talk much, but who always has someone wanting to understand what he's thinking. He's the man who doesn't explain himself, but everyone wants to listen. He's the guy who may seem distant, but is never ignored. And you've already noticed this. You've seen this man in action. And if you haven't seen him, you've probably felt the difference he makes. Because well-placed silence is more powerful than 1,000 anxious words. And that's the point that closes this whole system. The most desired men don't speak to be understood. They speak to be felt. This is the rule no one teaches. True power lies in what you don't give away. The implicit value, the unresolved mystery, the challenging presence. Because desire is driven by gaps, not certainties. It's stimulated by doubt, not confirmation. And when you're a book she's already read, she closes the cover. But when you're a code, she doesn't rest until she understands. And that, my friend, is the core of female excitement. Curiosity associated with value. The problem is that you've learned to want to be transparent. To think that honesty means premature exposure. That seducing is telling everything, explaining everything, being accessible, available, clear as water. And that vision screws you over. Because it turns you into just another one. Someone predictable. Someone who doesn't represent a challenge. And remember, where there is no challenge, there is no desire. The man who says everything doesn't awaken fascination. He eliminates the mystery. That's why the true seducer speaks less. He observes more. He listens more. He lets the other person discover him little by little, layer by layer. He doesn't rush to reveal everything because he understands what is revealed quickly is discarded soon. That's the key to implicit value. You don't show what you have. You allow it to be perceived, and that requires self-control, because most men try to impress, to show achievements, intelligence, morality, kindness. But the silent seducer simply moves with authenticity. He doesn't try to be interesting. He is. and the world notices. Nietzsche already said, "What is profound loves the veil," because the veil generates fascination, and fascination generates obsession. And here is the paradox. The man who talks too much, trying to generate connection, loses the value he could have. The man who comfortably sustains silence compels the other to approach to discover what lies behind it. This applies to business, to leadership, to seduction. Whoever has something real doesn't need to announce it. The absence of effort communicates abundance. And here's the most brutal detail. She notices it in seconds. She knows when you're trying to please her. She senses when your stories have a hidden agenda. She identifies when you're performing, and when she senses that, she shuts down. Because the man who needs to explain himself all the time isn't trustworthy. Not because he lies, but because he exudes insecurity. And insecurity kills desire. If you've made it this far, you already understand what others still ignore. The game of attraction isn't spoken, it's felt. Women aren't waiting for another man who explains, begs, or tries to prove his worth. They're hungry for a man who provokes something they themselves can't control. A man who carries a presence that doesn't justify itself, doesn't mold itself, and doesn't dissolve. But knowing the truth isn't enough. The real impact comes from daily practice, internal transformation, and the strategic application of all of this. And that's why I created the Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds, the complete audiobook. This isn't just more theoretical content. It's a practical, direct manual where I guide you through the specific behaviors, triggers, and strategies that transform you into a man impossible to ignore. You'll discover how to activate desire in the first seconds of contact, how to use silence as a weapon, and how to master your body language so that every step you take screams value, even without saying a word. If you felt the weight of these truths, imagine what will happen when you master these weapons with precision. Imagine what happens when your body communicates more than 1,000 words, and your silence makes her haunt you.